Captain Sarah Mitchell thought she knew how to spot trouble when she saw it. But the dangerous terrorist she was about to arrest in first class was actually the man who signed her paychecks. And 50,000 people were watching it happen live. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more shocking true stories that expose the hidden truths behind everyday encounters. These real-life moments will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about justice and prejudice. But let's go back to where it all began. Atlantic Airways Flight 1247 sat on the tarmac at Boston Logan International Airport, its engines humming with the promise of a routine 3-hour journey to Miami. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cabin as 189 passengers settled into their seats, most absorbed in their phones, unaware that they were about to witness one of the most explosive confrontations in aviation history. Ahmed Hassan adjusted his prayer beads in seat 2, the familiar weight of the Tasbih bringing him comfort as he prepared for what should have been an ordinary business trip. The 47-year-old CEO of Hassan Industries had flown first class thousands of times, but today felt different. Today, the carefully groomed beard he'd worn for 20 years, the Arabic script tattooed on his wrist, and the small Quran resting on his tray table would transform him from a respected businessman into public enemy number one. Flight attendant Lisa Parker noticed him immediately as she conducted her pre-flight safety check. 15 years of service had taught her to read passengers, to spot the troublemakers before they became problems. The Middle Eastern man in two made her skin crawl. His dark eyes seemed to follow her movements. His lips moved silently as he touched those beads, and when he opened that foreign book, the Arabic letters looked like a coded message to her untrained eyes. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the intercom, but years of company protocol kicked in. She needed to observe more before acting. Ahmed was lost in his morning prayers, whispering the familiar verses that had guided him through countless business deals, family crises, and moments of doubt. As the founder and CEO of Atlantic Airways, he understood the weight of responsibility that came with overseeing 30,000 employees and ensuring the safety of millions of passengers annually. But in this moment, he was simply a faithful man seeking Allah's blessing for the day ahead. The irony was lost on him that he was praying for protection while seated in his own aircraft, surrounded by his own crew, who were about to brand him as the very thing they were trained to fear. Zoe Chun settled into seat 4B, her phone already streaming live to her 2,000 followers on Instagram. The 24-year-old travel blogger was documenting her journey to Miami for a wellness retreat, chatting casually about her morning routine and the luxury of first-class travel. She had no idea that her innocent live stream would soon become the most viral video of the year, watched by millions and cited in congressional hearings about discrimination in the airline industry. Her camera captured everything: the nervous energy of the crew, the suspicious glances toward the man in 2A, and the growing tension that seemed to electrify the cabin air. Captain Sarah Mitchell completed her pre-flight checklist with military precision, her 18 years of experience evident in every calculated movement. She'd learned to trust her crew implicitly, especially Lisa Parker, whose instincts had prevented 3 security incidents in the past 2 years. When Lisa's voice crackled through the intercom, requesting her presence in first class, Mitchell's blood pressure spiked. Code situations were rare, but always serious, and she moved through the cabin with the focused intensity of someone trained to handle crisis. The passengers in economy barely looked up as she passed, unaware that their captain was about to make a decision that would destroy her career and forever change aviation security protocols across America. The tension in first class was thick enough to cut with a knife as Captain Mitchell approached seat 2A, her trained eyes immediately assessing the situation that had triggered Lisa's alert. Ahmed Hassan sat perfectly still, his dark fingers wrapped around a set of prayer beads, his lips moving silently in what appeared to be some form of incantation. The Arabic text on the open book in his lap seemed to dance in the cabin lighting, foreign symbols that Lisa had described as suspicious communications. Mitchell's pulse quickened as she noticed the way his eyes darted toward the emergency exits, the careful positioning of his carry-on bag, and most disturbing of all, the complete calm in his demeanor despite being under obvious scrutiny. "Sir," Captain Mitchell's voice carried the authority of nearly 2 decades in aviation, "I'm going to need to see some additional identification." Ahmed looked up from his Quran, his dark eyes meeting hers with a mixture of confusion and growing concern. In his 17 years as CEO of Atlantic Airways, he had never been asked for additional identification while seated in first class, especially not on his own aircraft. The irony wasn't lost on him that the captain demanding his papers was someone whose salary he personally approved each year. "I presented my boarding pass and driver's license at check-in," he replied calmly, his voice carrying just the slightest hint of an accent that sent alarm bells ringing in Lisa's prejudiced mind. Zoe Chen's Instagram livestream had attracted nearly 3,000 viewers as word spread that something dramatic was unfolding on Flight 1247. Her phone captured every nuance of the confrontation. The nervous energy radiating from the flight crew, the captain's aggressive posture, and the dignified composure of the Middle Eastern man who seemed to be at the center of the storm. Comments flooded her feed faster than she could read them. "Is this real? Someone's about to get arrested. This looks like discrimination. Call the news." The algorithm pushed her stream to trending status as viewers shared the link across social media platforms, turning a routine flight into must-see television for thousands of strangers. Lisa Parker's 15 years of service had taught her to trust her instincts, and every fiber of her being screamed danger when she looked at the man in 2A. His foreign prayers, the way he touched those beads like they held some secret power, and most damning of all, his complete lack of surprise at being questioned. Innocent passengers got flustered, demanded to speak to supervisors, made a scene. This man's eerie calm convinced her that she was looking at someone with training, someone who had prepared for this moment. "Captain," she whispered urgently, "he's been reading that Arabic book for 20 minutes. I've never seen him turn a page. He's memorizing something." The other first-class passengers had stopped pretending to mind their own business, phones emerging from pockets and purses as the realization dawned that they were witnessing something extraordinary. The businessman in 1C live-streamed to his LinkedIn followers, adding commentary about airline security protocols. The elderly couple in 3A whispered nervously about terrorists while recording everything for their grandchildren. Even the flight attendants from economy had found excuses to walk through first class, sensing the electric tension that seemed to pulse through the aircraft like a living thing. Ahmed Hassan found himself at the center of a digital panopticon, every gesture analyzed, every breath scrutinized by hundreds of unseen observers. Ground control crackled through Captain Mitchell's radio with increasing urgency. "Flight 1247. You're showing 15 minutes past scheduled departure. What's your status?" Mitchell felt the weight of 189 passengers, airline schedules, and her own career pressing down on her shoulders like a physical force. In the post-9/11 world, the rules were clear. When in doubt, err on the side of caution. She had seen careers ended by captains who ignored warning signs, who let political correctness override safety protocols. "Ground control, we're dealing with a potential security situation. Stand by for further instructions." The words sealed Ahmed Hassan's fate, broadcasting to air traffic control, airline management, and federal authorities that Flight 1247 had a suspected terrorist on board. Airport security officers Jake Davies and Maria Thompson boarded Flight 1247 with the grim efficiency of professionals who had handled hundreds of similar situations. The radio chatter had been clear. Potential terrorist threat in first class. Middle Eastern male. Suspicious behavior. Crew requesting immediate removal. Davies, a former Marine with 12 years of airport security experience, approached Seat 2A with his hand resting casually on his restraints. What he saw surprised him. Instead of the agitated, nervous suspect he expected, Ahmed Hassan sat with an almost supernatural calm, his prayer beads resting peacefully in his lap, his dark eyes reflecting a depth that spoke of education and refinement rather than extremist fervor. "Sir, I'm Officer Davies, Airport Security." His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. "We're going to need you to come with us for additional screening." Ahmed closed his Quran with deliberate care, marking his place with a silk ribbon before looking up at the two officers who flanked his seat like predators cornering prey. The irony of the moment wasn't lost on him. As CEO of Atlantic Airways, he had personally signed the contracts that employed both of these officers, had approved the security protocols they were now implementing, and had even attended the diversity training sessions that apparently meant nothing when faced with his bearded face and form book. Zoe Chen's Instagram livestream had exploded to over 8,000 viewers as word spread across social media that a real-time discrimination incident was unfolding on Flight 1247. Her comment section became a battlefield of opinions, with some viewers demanding Ahmed's immediate arrest, while others recognized the clear signs of racial profiling playing out before their eyes. "This is 2025, and we're still doing this," one commenter wrote. "Record everything," demanded another. "This man is going to sue them into bankruptcy." The hashtag Flight 1247 began trending nationally as the stream was shared across platforms, turning a routine security check into a viral phenomenon that would soon reach the desks of civil rights attorneys across the country. Lisa Parker felt vindicated as she watched the security officers take control of the situation. Her 15 years of experience had taught her to trust her instincts, and everything about the man in two screamed danger to her prejudiced mind. The way he touched those prayer beads like a weapon, the foreign writing that could easily be coded instructions, and most damning of all, his complete lack of surprise at being confronted. "Officers," she interjected, her voice shaking with nervous energy, "he's been reading that book in Arabic for over 30 minutes. I've watched him. He never turns the pages. He's memorizing something." Her words hung in the recycled cabin air like an accusation, each syllable weighted with the assumption that Arabic text could only mean one thing. Captain Mitchell watched the confrontation unfold with growing unease, her training warring with an instinct she couldn't quite name. 18 years of flying had taught her to read people, and something about Ahmed Hassan didn't fit the profile of a terrorist. His expensive suit, his refined mannerisms, the quality of his leather briefcase. Everything suggested a man of substantial means and education. But Lisa Parker's concerns couldn't be ignored, and in the post-9/11 aviation industry, careers were ended not by false positives, but by the one threat that slipped through unchallenged. "Sir," she addressed Ahmed directly, "this is a simple matter of additional verification. If you'll cooperate with our security officers, we can resolve this quickly and continue with our departure." Ahmed Hassan stood slowly, his movements deliberate and non-threatening, but his mind raced with the implications of what was unfolding. As the CEO of Atlantic Airways, he understood the legal and financial consequences of what was happening better than anyone in the cabin. Every moment of this confrontation was being recorded by multiple devices, each second of discrimination adding zeros to the inevitable lawsuit that would follow. But more than the legal ramifications, he felt the crushing weight of prejudice that millions of Muslims face daily, the assumption that their faith made them inherently dangerous, that their prayers were plots, and their devotion was extremism. "Officers," his voice remained steady despite the storm brewing inside him, "I'm happy to cooperate, but I believe there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about who I am." The moment Ahmed Hassan reached into his briefcase, every person in first class held their breath, phones recording from multiple angles as the drama reached its inevitable crescendo. Officer Davies tensed, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon as he watched the suspect retrieve what appeared to be a leather document folder, expensive and embossed with a logo that seemed familiar but remained just out of recognition's reach. "Slowly, sir," Davies commanded, his Marine training evident in the controlled authority of his voice. "No sudden movements." Ahmed's movements were deliberately measured as he opened the folder, extracting a business card with the precision of a man who had performed this ritual thousands of times in boardrooms across the globe. Captain Mitchell accepted the card with trembling fingers, her eyes scanning the elegant typography that would forever change the trajectory of her career. "Ahmed Hassan, Chief Executive Officer, Atlantic Airways," she read aloud, her voice barely audible above the cabin's ambient noise. The words hung in the recycled air like a death sentence, each syllable carrying the weight of institutional failure and personal catastrophe. Officer Davies leaned in to verify what his ears couldn't quite process, his military bearing cracking as the reality of their situation crashed over him like a tsunami of professional destruction. They hadn't just detained a passenger. They had arrested their own CEO, the man whose signature appeared on their paychecks, whose vision had built the very aircraft they stood in. Zoe Chen's Instagram live stream exploded past 15,000 viewers as the revelation rippled through social media like wildfire, her comment section becoming a battleground of shock, vindication, and raw fury at the discrimination they had all witnessed in real time. "Holy shit, he's the CEO," dominated the feed, mixed with demands for justice, predictions of massive lawsuits, and angry denouncements of the Islamophobia that had just played out before the world's eyes. The hashtag Flight 1247 trended nationally within minutes, picked up by major news networks whose producers scrambled to understand how a routine flight had become the most explosive civil rights incident of the year. Every major civil rights organization in America received notifications as their social media teams flagged the viral content that was reshaping public discourse about discrimination in real time. Lisa Parker's world collapsed in the span of a heartbeat as she stared at the business card that proved her 15 years of experience meant nothing in the face of her own prejudice. The man she had branded as a terrorist, whose prayers she had interpreted as threats, whose Arabic book she had seen as coded communications, was the person who had hired her, who had implemented the very diversity training she had ignored, who had the power to end not just her career, but her entire future in the aviation industry. Her legs gave out as she sank into the nearest passenger seat, hyperventilating as the full weight of her assumptions crushed down upon her like a physical force. Every suspicious glance, every whispered concern, every moment of fear she had projected onto Ahmed Hassan was now recorded evidence of the institutional bias that would define her legacy. The cabin's atmosphere shifted from tension to horror as the other passengers began to comprehend what they had witnessed and, more importantly, what they had failed to prevent. The businessman in 1C stopped his LinkedIn live stream, suddenly aware that his commentary about necessary security measures would be used as evidence of his own complicity in the discrimination. The elderly couple in 3A realized their whispered comments about those people had been captured by multiple recording devices, their casual racism now preserved forever in the digital record that would be dissected by lawyers, activists, and historians studying this moment of institutional failure. Even the economy passengers who had ignored the commotion in first class would soon discover that their silence in the face of obvious discrimination had made them unwilling participants in a civil rights violation that would be studied in law schools for decades. Ahmed Hassan stood with quiet dignity as the chaos swirled around him, his years of executive experience evident in the way he commanded respect even while being falsely accused of terrorism. "Officers," his voice cut through the pandemonium with the authority of a man accustomed to boardroom crises, "I believe we need to discuss the legal implications of what has transpired here today." He gestured toward the phones recording from every angle, the live streams broadcasting to thousands of viewers, the permanent digital record that would make this incident impossible to deny, minimize, or cover up. As CEO of Atlantic Airways, I want you to know that every second of this interaction has been documented by multiple devices and will be thoroughly reviewed by our legal department, the Department of Transportation, and every civil rights organization in America. The silence that followed Ahmed Hassan's revelation stretched like a chasm between two worlds, the world of assumptions that had just crumbled and the new reality that would reshape Atlantic Airways forever. Captain Mitchell stared at the business card in her trembling hands, her 18-year career flashing before her eyes like a drowning woman's final moments. Officer Davies, the former Marine who had faced combat in 3 war zones, found himself paralyzed by the weight of his catastrophic error. They had just arrested the man who owned the aircraft, who employed them all, who would now have the power to destroy their lives with the same methodical precision they had used to destroy his dignity. Ahmed Hassan stood with quiet authority as chaos erupted around him, his years of executive experience evident in how he commanded respect, even while being falsely accused of terrorism. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice cut through the pandemonium with the measured tone of a boardroom presentation, "what you have witnessed today is not an isolated incident, but a systematic failure that occurs thousands of times annually across the American aviation industry." He gestured toward the phones recording from every angle, the live streams broadcasting to viewers worldwide, the permanent digital record that would make this moment impossible to deny or minimize. As CEO of Atlantic Airways, I have access to internal data that shows Muslim passengers are removed from flights at a rate 17 times higher than any other demographic group. Zoe Chin's Instagram livestream had exploded past 25,000 viewers as major news networks began picking up the feed, her comment section becoming a real-time battlefield of outrage, vindication, and demand for justice. Hashtag Flight 1247 was trending globally, with civil rights attorneys, politicians, and activists sharing the stream across every platform. The footage was already being downloaded and archived by legal teams who recognized they were witnessing the most significant airline discrimination case in decades. "This is literally history happening live," Zoe whispered to her audience, her voice shaking with the magnitude of what she had accidentally documented. Lisa Parker's 15-year career disintegrated in real time as she hyperventilated in the passenger seat, the full weight of her prejudice crushing down upon her like a physical force. Every whispered suspicion, every fearful glance, every moment she had branded Ahmed Hassan as dangerous was now permanent evidence of institutional bias that would be studied in civil rights law courses for generations. Her assumptions about Arabic prayers, foreign books, and Middle Eastern appearance had just cost Atlantic Airways millions in legal settlements and destroyed the careers of everyone involved in the discriminatory removal attempt. Ahmed opened his briefcase with deliberate precision, retrieving a tablet that displayed real-time social media analytics showing the viral explosion of their confrontation across global platforms. In the next hour, he announced to the stunned cabin, Atlantic Airways will release the most comprehensive anti-discrimination policy in aviation history. Mandatory body cameras for all crew members, third-party bias auditing, immediate termination for discriminatory behavior, and a $50 million victim compensation fund. His eyes moved methodically across the faces of his employees who had failed him so catastrophically. "Captain Mitchell, Officer Davies, Ms. Parker, you will spend the next year traveling to every Atlantic Airways hub telling your story, demonstrating to employees exactly how bias operates and how assumptions become discrimination." The aftermath unfolded with the inevitability of a natural disaster as federal investigators boarded the aircraft, news vans surrounded the terminal, and legal teams mobilized across the country. Ahmed Hassan's transformation from suspected terrorist to civil rights icon happened in real time, watched by millions who had witnessed the raw power of prejudice and its ultimate defeat. Flight 1247 never reached Miami that day, but its impact reached every corner of America, changing aviation security protocols, corporate diversity training, and public awareness of Islamophobia forever. 6 months later, the Hassan Protocol would be implemented by every major airline in the world, ensuring that Ahmed's humiliation became the catalyst for systemic change that protected countless future passengers from the discrimination he had endured with such dignity and grace.